I don't know what's going on. Something feels off with my wife and I can't shake this feeling. It's been building for weeks now. Ever since we got together, things were always clear between us, at least I thought they were. But lately, I've been noticing these small, strange things that I can't explain. It started with her phone. She's always had her phone on her, glued to it, even when we're watching TV, even when we're eating dinner. It's just part of who she is. She works a seasonal job during the summer, and when the colder months come, she stays home with our son. She doesn't have a traditional 9 to 5, so she has plenty of time to be active on social media, messaging friends, and catching up on all the family stuff. And I've never minded it. But then there was the silence. Her phone stopped buzzing. I first noticed it around the start of the winter. I would come home and the silence would hit me. I'd glance at her phone and there were no notifications. No alerts, no buzzes, nothing. She's active in a huge family Facebook group, constantly chatting and posting, yet every time I asked her, "Hey, isn't your phone on silent or do not disturb?" she'd give me that same look like I was overthinking things. She'd say, "No, it's fine, it's just that nobody texts me that much." But that didn't sit right with me. I know she has friends, lots of them. I know she's involved with things. Yet every night, no texts, no messages, no notifications. The weirdest part, it always happens between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., every single night without fail. At first, I convinced myself it was just nothing. Maybe she was getting less attention from people. But as time went on, I started to feel more suspicious. I'd catch her, like last night, on her phone for hours, scrolling through something. I wasn't home at that time, and when I returned, she was still scrolling, absorbed in whatever it was. When I asked her what was so interesting, she'd just shrug it off, saying, "Oh, nothing special." But I could see her eyes darting nervously, her fingers swiping faster, almost as if she was trying to hide something from me. I don't know why, but I felt that familiar knot in my stomach again. That feeling that something wasn't right. I'm no fool. I know when I'm being lied to, even if it's something as simple as this. I know when something doesn't add up. So I started to pay closer attention. My mind started racing. Could she be hiding something? Could she be seeing someone else? I didn't want to believe it at first. After all, we've been together for years and I trusted her. But the more I observed, the more things didn't make sense. Her phone habits had changed. She used more data than I did, and not just by a little, by a lot. But here's the thing. Whenever I'd ask her what she was doing, she'd just say, "Oh, just checking my messages," or "I'm watching a video." There was always an explanation, but none of them seemed convincing. I work long hours. I'm out all day, busting my ass at my job. When I get home, she's usually there with our son. She's good with him, she always has been, but there's this underlying tension. A silence that wasn't there before. Her phone is always in her hands. When I'm around, she makes an effort to hide it, placing it face down on the counter or shoving it in her purse. It's like she's afraid of me seeing something. But I know there's something going on. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was happening. I needed answers. When she fell asleep, I grabbed her phone. My heart was pounding in my chest as I unlocked it. I don't know why I felt like such a coward for doing it. But the curiosity, no, the suspicion was eating away at me. What was she hiding? I scrolled through her messages first, looking for anything unusual. At first, everything seemed normal. Conversations with her friends, some mundane updates about our son, family stuff. But then I saw it. A name kept popping up, someone I didn't recognize. His name was Michael. I didn't know who he was at first, but there was something in their messages that didn't sit right with me. It wasn't anything overt, nothing explicit, but the way they spoke to each other, the inside jokes, the emojis. The tone was different from the rest of her conversations. Too familiar, too intimate. I couldn't stop reading. "Can't wait to see you later. Yeah, I miss you too." I wanted to throw the phone across the room. My hands were shaking, my breath shallow. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How long had this been going on? How long had she been sneaking around behind my back? The more I read, the more I felt like I was suffocating. Everything we had felt like a lie, a damn facade. I couldn't understand how she could betray me like this. How could she look me in the eye every day, kiss me, tell me she loved me, and still be texting him like that? I felt so stupid, so blind. I couldn't even look at her when I finally put the phone down. I went into the bathroom, took a deep breath, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I could feel the rage bubbling inside me. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. I had been played for a fool and I couldn't let her get away with it. I wouldn't. That night as I lay awake beside her, I started to think. My mind worked overtime, piecing together what I'd discovered. She thought she could get away with this, but she didn't know me. She didn't know what I was capable of when I was backed into a corner. I couldn't just confront her. No, that would be too easy. I had to make her feel what I was feeling. The pain, the anger, the disgust. So I started plotting. I began to watch her more closely, learn her routine. When she thought I was at work, I would go home early and keep an eye on her. I needed to see if she would meet up with Michael. I needed to find proof, real, undeniable proof that she was cheating on me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the best way to hurt her, to make her truly feel the weight of her betrayal, was to hit her where it hurt the most. I would make her believe that I didn't care. I would act as though everything was fine, let her think I didn't know. But then I would take everything she loved, everything she took for granted, and I would destroy it. I would make her regret the day she ever lied to me. I couldn't shake the feeling. The anger was building inside me like a storm waiting to break. The discovery of those messages was like a spark that lit a fire I couldn't control. I knew I had to be careful, take my time. I couldn't just rush in with accusations. That would be too easy. She would lie, deny, and try to turn everything around on me. No. I needed to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. I needed her to see that I knew what she had been doing. So I began to plan. Every detail had to be perfect. I started to follow her more closely. I'd come home early some days, and when she thought I was working late, I'd sneak back in, quietly observing her every move. She thought she was being careful, but I was smarter than that. I watched her interactions with Michael. The more I observed, the more I realized how deep this affair was. She wasn't just texting him casually, there was history. There were moments, shared experiences. They made plans. I didn't just feel betrayed anymore. I felt like a fool, a man who had been living a lie. I could almost hear her voice in my head telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about, that I was just overreacting. But I wasn't. I had proof now, real, undeniable proof. I started to change. My demeanor, my actions, even the way I looked at her. I would look at her and wonder how many times she had kissed me while thinking of him. How many times had she lied to me, pretending that everything was fine when all along she had been living another life behind my back. And then I started to act. One afternoon, I told her I'd be working late. It wasn't unusual. She was home with our son, and I knew she'd be alone. I had set everything up. My heart was pounding in my chest as I parked my car down the street and waited. I had a gut feeling that today was the day. When I saw his car pull into our driveway, my blood ran cold. Michael was here. He wasn't just sending her texts anymore, he was showing up. My hands clenched the steering wheel, my teeth grinding together. I had to keep calm. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I watched them through the window. She greeted him with a smile too warm, too familiar. He kissed her on the cheek. My stomach churned. The man who had been texting her about missing her was now in my house. It was happening right under my nose. I wanted to burst in to confront them both, but I held back. I couldn't let my emotions control me, not yet. I needed to make sure she understood the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to feel guilty, to realize how easily she had thrown away everything we built. For the next few hours, I stayed hidden in my car, watching. They were inside together, talking, laughing. At some point, I saw them sit on the couch, too close. He put his arm around her. I couldn't take it anymore. My vision blurred with rage. It was as if my world had shattered into pieces and I was left standing in the wreckage. Eventually, he left. But she didn't see me watching. I wasn't going to let her know I had been there. That was the power I had now. She was the one who was being deceived, thinking everything was fine, while I knew the truth. When I finally walked through the door that evening, I acted like everything was normal. She greeted me with that same smile, the one I used to trust. But now, I couldn't look at her the same way. Not anymore. I spent the next few days pretending nothing was wrong. I knew it was just a matter of time before she would slip up, before she would let something slip that would expose her. But I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. The kiss, the touch, the way she had looked at him, it was all a reminder of how little she cared for me. The anger inside me grew stronger every day. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Angry at her for betraying me, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, angry at the life we had built that was now crumbling to dust. I began to form a plan in my mind, a plan to make her feel the same emptiness I felt. I would make her realize what she had lost. I didn't know how yet, but I would find a way. That night I went to bed next to her just as I had every night, but it was different now. There was a distance between us, an invisible wall I couldn't break through. I couldn't bring myself to touch her, to kiss her like I used to. Every time I did, I felt the lies, the deceit, the weight of her actions crushing me. She had betrayed me, and now I was going to make her pay. It had been a week since I saw Michael at our house, and I was starting to lose control. Every time I looked at her, I saw nothing but lies. Her innocent smile, her calm voice, it all felt like a performance. She had no idea what I knew, no idea that the trust we once shared was shattered beyond repair. I had to confront her, but not in the way she expected. No, I wasn't going to let her off easy. I needed her to feel what I was feeling, the confusion, the anger, the sheer heartbreak. I decided to wait for the right moment. I knew she was getting comfortable, thinking everything was fine, that I was none the wiser. I watched her go about her daily routine, pretending like everything was normal. But she didn't realize how far I was willing to go. One evening I waited until she was in the kitchen preparing dinner. She was humming some tune to herself, unaware that I was standing just behind her, my heart pounding in my chest. I took a deep breath. It was time. "I know about Michael," I said, my voice steady but cold. She froze, her knife hovering mid-air as she looked at me. Her face drained of color, and for a split second I saw the fear in her eyes. It was a fleeting moment, but it was enough. She knew. What are you talking about?" she stammered, trying to play it off like she didn't know what I was referring to. "I saw you two together," I continued, not allowing her to avoid the truth. "I saw how you looked at him, the way he touched you." "Don't lie to me, her name. I know everything." She started to shake her head, her face contorting with panic. "It's not what you think," she said, but her words felt hollow, desperate. She knew there was no escape now. "I've been watching you," I said, my voice hardening. "I've seen the texts, I've seen everything. You've been lying to me for months." Her eyes welled with tears, but they didn't move me. Nothing moved me anymore. She was already lost to me. "Please, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I never wanted to hurt you." "Too late for apologies," I snapped. "Do you know how it feels to be betrayed by the one person you trust most? To watch your entire life crumble because of a lie? Do you even understand what you've done to me?" She fell silent, her shoulders trembling. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but it was too little, too late. I took a step closer, my anger swelling. "I'm done with your lies. You don't get to play the victim here." The days that followed were a blur of tension. I couldn't look at her without seeing Michael, without hearing her voice in my head telling him that she missed him, telling him she couldn't wait to see him again. The thought of it made my skin crawl. She begged me to forgive her, but I wasn't interested in forgiveness anymore. I wanted justice. I wanted to make her feel the same way I felt, the emptiness, the humiliation, the utter betrayal. So I started playing the game. I acted as if I didn't care. I became distant, cold, and detached. I didn't speak to her unless I had to. When she tried to get close, I pulled away. I made her feel the void between us, the absence of trust. I wanted her to feel how far we had fallen, how broken we were. But that wasn't enough. I started doing things she wouldn't expect. I'd cancel plans we made together, pretending I had work, keeping myself busy with anything to avoid being near her. I'd go out with friends, not telling her where I was, making her wonder if I was seeing someone else. I wanted her to feel the same anxiety, the same confusion I felt when I found out about Michael. I watched her suffer, but inside I knew this wasn't enough. I wasn't finished yet. I needed to hit her where it would hurt the most. I knew she loved our life together. I knew she loved our family. And I would destroy it all, piece by piece, if that's what it took to make her truly understand what she had done. Days turned into weeks, and the Cold War between us grew more unbearable. It was as if we were living in the same house, but we weren't even remotely connected anymore. She still tried to get through to me, tried to talk, tried to fix things, but nothing she said mattered to me. I had lost her. She had already chosen him, and I was just some fool who couldn't see it until it was too late. I decided it was time to take things to the next level. One afternoon, I arranged a meeting with Michael. I knew she wouldn't expect it. I needed to look him in the eye to see the man who had taken everything from me. I had to see the face of my enemy. I watched as he walked into the cafe where we agreed to meet. He looked confident, too confident. But as soon as he saw me sitting there, I saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You've been seeing my wife," I said, my voice low, almost a whisper, "and you've been lying to me this whole time." He tried to play it off, acting innocent, but I could see the truth in his eyes. The guilt was written all over him. "You don't get to walk away from this," I said, standing up. "You both ruined my life, and now I'm going to make you regret it." I wasn't sure what I expected to happen next. But I was done pretending. I was done being the good guy. The game was over. It wasn't enough. Meeting Michael didn't give me the closure I was hoping for. If anything, it just fueled the fire. I walked out of that cafe with a sense of finality, but the weight of my actions felt heavier than I expected. I had confronted him, but he was just a piece of the puzzle. The real betrayal still lay at home, staring me in the face every time I saw her. She was still trying. Every day she asked me if I was okay, if there was any way to fix things, if we could just talk. It was all the same, her apologizing, me ignoring her, but nothing could fix this. The words she said were meaningless now, just like the empty promises she had made. She didn't just hurt me. She destroyed the life we had built together. I had been patient, too patient, but patience doesn't heal a broken heart. It only prolongs the suffering, and I was done. I didn't want to look at her anymore. Every word out of her mouth felt like a lie, and every attempt to make things better only made things worse. I started to feel numb. She could try all she wanted, but it wasn't going to change anything. I had made my decision. That night I packed my things. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't owe her an explanation. I couldn't look at her without feeling sick. So I left. I went to a friend's place, someone who had no idea about any of this, but I needed space. I needed to clear my mind, even though deep down I knew that nothing was going to fix this. She didn't call or text me that night. And that's when I knew the silence between us was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. She knew it was over too. I stayed with my friend for a couple of days, trying to figure out what I was going to do. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it wasn't just anger anymore. It was something else, something colder, something darker. I was consumed by the idea of revenge. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I needed her to realize what she had lost, but I wasn't sure how to make her truly feel the consequences of her betrayal. I wasn't sure if I could go back to the life we had, even if she begged for forgiveness. The damage was done, and I didn't know how to fix it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe I didn't need to fix it. Maybe it was better to leave everything behind. I couldn't bring myself to face her again. I couldn't sit across the dinner table and pretend that things were normal, and so I stayed away. It wasn't long before she showed up at my friend's place, pleading with me to come home. She was crying, her face pale and drawn. She said she loved me, that she made a mistake, and that she didn't want to lose our family. I watched her, feeling nothing. There was no relief in seeing her like that. I had waited for this moment, thinking it would feel good. But it didn't. It felt empty, like I had already moved on, even though my heart was still shattered. "I don't want to hear it," I said, turning away. "You made your choice. You made it clear. Don't come here again." And with that, I shut the door. Days passed, and the silence between us was suffocating. It wasn't just the silence in our conversations, it was the silence in my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, about the life we had lost, and about the pain she caused. I thought about Michael, and I wondered if he was still in her life. I didn't want to know, but I couldn't help it. The world around me felt like it had been ripped apart. My job, my friends, everything had become secondary to the storm inside me. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every waking moment was consumed with thoughts of her, and every thought about her was followed by rage. I wanted her to feel as empty as I did. I wanted her to lose everything just like I had. And every time I thought of her, I imagined her life crumbling. I imagined her lonely and desperate, realizing that what she had done was unforgivable. But then something unexpected happened. One night when I was still at my friend's place, I received a message. It wasn't from her. It was from a number I didn't recognize. It was Michael. The message was short, but it hit me harder than anything else. It was a simple text, just 2 words: "She's mine." I didn't know how to feel. The message made me angry, but instead I felt an overwhelming sense of numbness. I had been so focused on getting revenge, on making her regret what she had done to me, that I never considered what might happen if she chose him. She had chosen him. I knew that now. I stood there, staring at the message for a long time, my mind racing. In a strange way, it felt like a weight had been lifted. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. I wasn't going to fight for her anymore. I wasn't going to beg for her attention. The anger, the pain, the betrayal, it was all still there, but it wasn't enough to keep me in this life. I had already moved on. She had already moved on. It was over. I sent Michael a final message, one last shot across the bow. Good luck with her. You're going to need it. Then I turned off my phone, packed my things, and walked out of the life that had once been mine. It was time for something new, something that didn't carry the weight of betrayal. I had been hurt, yes, but I was stronger now, stronger than I had ever been, and I would never look back. I had walked away. I had convinced myself that leaving was the best option. But now, as I sat in the emptiness of my apartment, I couldn't ignore the storm inside me. The hurt, the rage, the deep betrayal, it was still there, festering like a wound that refused to heal. I had tried to numb myself with the idea of moving on, but I couldn't. Not yet. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I hadn't finished this. I hadn't given her what she deserved. I hadn't made her feel the pain I had endured. I had let her think she could get away with it. The anger swelled again, unstoppable. It wasn't enough to simply leave. I had to make her regret every single thing she'd done. I wanted her to feel the same emptiness, the same betrayal that I had lived through. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. No, I was going to make her wish she never crossed me. I spent the next few days thinking, planning, carefully plotting how to break her down piece by piece. I wasn't going to make it quick. It would be slow. It would be painful. Every move I made would be calculated. Every moment would make her question everything she thought she knew. I knew her weak spots, her fears. I had watched her, listened to her. She had never been as careful as she thought. She had left her life wide open to me, trusting that I would never look deeper. But I had learned. I had seen it all. I started small, subtle at first. I sent anonymous messages, reminders of her betrayal, texts that reminded her of what she had done, of what she had chosen. I made sure her friends heard whispers about her secrets, about the affair, about how she had lied to everyone. I planted doubts in their minds, making them wonder just how much they knew about her true character. Her family was next. I contacted them, sending them copies of the photos. I made sure they knew right before a big family event. Watching her face when she found out they knew was worth it. The shock, the disbelief, it was everything I wanted it to be. She tried to deny it, tried to explain, but the damage had already been done. Her own family was looking at her differently. They saw her for what she really was. It wasn't enough. I needed more. The next step was a public confrontation. I wanted everyone to see who she had become, to watch her crumble in front of the people who mattered most. I knew it would hurt her the most if it was done in front of her friends and colleagues. It wasn't just about humiliation, it was about destroying the image she had spent so long cultivating. I waited for the right moment. She was hosting a gathering for work, a dinner, a night with people she cared about. That was the moment I would strike. I showed up uninvited. She didn't see me at first, too busy laughing and chatting. But I made my presence known when I stepped into the room and placed the envelope on the table. She turned, saw me, and I watched the color drain from her face. The air shifted instantly, like a dark cloud had descended on the room. Everyone went silent. I pulled out the pictures of her and Michael. The late-night texts, the secret meetings. The truth was now in front of everyone, laid bare. She tried to speak, but no words came. She looked at me, eyes wide, pleading silently. "I think everyone should know the truth about who you really are," I said, my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your lies, your deceit, your affair, it's all right here." Her coworkers, her friends, they all stared at her, waiting for her to defend herself. But she couldn't escape the truth. I watched her crumble. Her facade, the image she had so carefully crafted for years, was shattering. Her eyes welled up with tears, but this wasn't the time for pity. This was the moment of reckoning. She tried to leave, but I stopped her. I grabbed her arm and pulled her back, my grip firm. "You're not going anywhere," I said coldly. "You don't get to walk away this time, not after everything you've done." By the end of the night, she had lost everything. Her friends were gone, her colleagues had turned their backs on her, and her family was distant, unable to look her in the eye. But I wasn't finished. I wasn't going to let her rebuild. I spread the word. I made sure everyone knew. I even went as far as to leave anonymous messages at her new workplace, letting everyone know the real reason she had been let go from her previous job. I twisted the knife deeper, making sure her reputation was ruined for good. I couldn't just let her live in the afterglow of her life. She had to face the consequences. And then, when she had nothing left, I waited. I watched her fall. She tried to pick herself up, tried to apologize, but the walls around her had already crumbled. She couldn't rebuild from this. I had won. Weeks went by and I saw her struggle, watched as she tried to piece together the broken remnants of her life. But it was all in vain. The people who had once been her support system, her friends, her family, were gone. I had taken it all from her, and she was left with nothing. It didn't feel as satisfying as I thought it would. In the moments when I was alone, I realized there was still a hollow feeling in my chest. The revenge had been sweet, but it didn't fill the emptiness inside me. I had burned everything to the ground, and in the end I was left with ashes. I walked away, knowing that I had gotten my revenge. I had done what I set out to do, made her suffer the way I had suffered. But as I moved on, I realized that the victory I had chased for so long didn't bring me peace. It had only left me empty. The pain was still there, the anger was still there, but it was time to stop looking back. I had won. But in the end, it didn't matter anymore. I could only look forward. The past was behind me, and the future, well, that was mine to shape.